Hello, hello. Welcome back. It has been a while, everybody. Time really flies, doesn't it? I mean, not to sound too ominous, I just took a bit of an extended break from One Piece. But enough small talk for now. I would like to get into the meat of this video, rather the purpose of what I want to talk about. This is a theory or topic I've just been wanting to talk about for years now. Never really got around to it. The Great Kingdom. The ancient Great Kingdom and Void Century have long remained a topic shrouded in mystery for fans of One Piece. The name of this kingdom has yet to be spoken. However, I believe once the truth is fully shown to us, we will finally understand much about the secrets surrounding the world government, the truth behind devil fruits, and maybe even the One Piece itself. This video may be a bit longer than usual, so I will ask that you buckle up and enjoy the film. After spending weeks doing extensive research and digging through many old chapters with my friend Theorytheory2, we believe there are many shockingly obvious details that we have all been overlooking for years. If what we have found about this lost history bears any truth, I am fully convinced most of the other mysteries in the One Piece world will also be revealed along with it. To begin our journey into the Void Century, along with the rest of the world's secrets, we must first understand what has been fully established in the manga. The Great Kingdom was first mentioned by Professor Clover when he was confronted by the world government and navy. The Great Kingdom existed most likely as a powerful opposition to the other kingdoms that would eventually form today's world government. That much is obvious. But why go through such lengths to bury the very existence of this enemy kingdom? How much of a threat could this knowledge pose to the world government? This idea is further established by Professor Clover through his explanation to the Gorosei, where he states that indeed, the very knowledge of this kingdom's existence, and perhaps even their goals or ideals, could be used to threaten the entire world government. Moreover, the existence of the three ancient weapons were also mentioned as enormous threats to the Gorosei, and perhaps even the world itself, and Clover's revelation to the Gorosei led to his immediate execution, along with the complete and utter destruction of Ohara. I would like to get into the ancient weapons more later, but for now, I want to cover the ancient kingdoms almost exclusively. I believe there is a lot to cover about the very existence of this kingdom and its threat to the world government. Going back into our knowledge about the One Piece world, Ohara's scholars and archaeologists showed us much of what we need to know. This information will also be vital to understanding the Void Century. The planet that the One Piece world resides on isn't quite like our own planet. It has about 6 regular moons and a sub-satellite orbiting one of the moons. Furthermore, we already know how physically divided the One Piece world is. There are 4 corners of the planet that we know as the North, East, South, and West Blues. Thanks to the Calm Belt and the Red Line, travel between these regions and even to the Grand Line and New World is made nearly impossible for ordinary civilians. In a way, it is incredibly sad that there is such division amongst people, and even more division and racism directed at the other demi-human races altogether. I would like to once again delve into this a bit later, but for now let's focus on the actual physical geography and astronomy of the One Piece universe, as it is vital to this topic. To begin, these 7 moons have had an interesting role in both side stories and character power-ups throughout the series. Kuro first showed that the sight of the crescent moon made him uncontrollably murderous. The minks were also shown to gain considerable power in their Sulong form when under the full moon. In addition, there have been instances of travel to the moons, such as the Enel cover story where he traveled to the moon easily without any gear. There he uncovered the idea that the Skypians, Shandorians, and Burkans all descended from the lunar city of Burka, and abandoned the moon to travel to Sky Island and other areas on the main planet. Even space pirates were shown to us during these cover pages, which suggests the idea of creatures or other humanoids existing on the moons. In fact, some of these space pirates resemble minks. This could also mean minks are descended from one of the moons, as their ties to the moon were already quite apparent. Some further proof of the main planet inhabitants descending from the moon include the celestial dragons and their astronaut gear. It wouldn't be entirely unlikely that a group named the Celestial Dragons came from beyond this world, and since they are considered gods by many, maybe they were the first humans to descend from the moon to the main planet, which earned them their titles. The one group of demi-humans that probably belong to the main planet itself are the Fishmen and Merfolk. Seeing as though a majority of the One Piece world is filled with water and small islands, most of its life would have originated in the ocean. When the first humans descended to the planet, this might have been where the first signs of racial tension occurred, and where the original kingdoms were founded along with the Great Kingdom. The dates of the founding of all these kingdoms seem to line up around 1,000 years ago. If you don't want to take my word for it, looking at the official One Piece wiki will show you these dates with referenced chapters. Some groups that came from the moon decided to ally with the Great Kingdom over many of the other kingdoms, for reasons we don't fully know. But considering that we tend to see themes of harmony and freedom in the Great Kingdom and themes of order, oppression, and control in the current world government, I would venture to say that these ideals always existed in these groups ever since the Void Century. To further encapsulate this idea, we note that Joy Boy, a likely official or representative of the Great Kingdom, had tried to make peace with the Fish People, though upon failing to do so, which was likely a result of the Great Kingdom's defeat, we would only see humanity ruthlessly oppressing the Fish People under the current world government's rule. It would be expected to find out that Joy Boy was the ancestor of both Roger and Luffy, as they have always been connected with each other by fate, meaning they might have all been members of the D descendants, which were a part of the Great Kingdom, I believe. I'd even argue that Joy Boy could have been the old ruler of the Great Kingdom, as he was the one that Roger speaks about being the messenger of all the ancient history. The D family itself is said to be the natural enemy of God, aka the Celestial Dragons and current world government. I believe it is heavily suggested that the D family were a prominent family in the Void Century that may have been allies or a ruling family within the Great Kingdom. Additionally, it's been recently established that the island of Laughtale also contained vital information on the D family, Joy Boy, the ancient weapons, and the entire world history, meaning that this island was some form of base of the ancient kingdom. This also begs the question, could Laughtale be where the entire ancient kingdom resided? Well, I'm doubtful. You see, first off, the description and picture we've been given on Laughtale doesn't really suggest the ruins of a grand kingdom, but rather a small island hidden away from the reaches of the enemies and world government. A treasure island of sorts. Secondly, Laughtale hasn't been reached by anyone in 800 years. If the Great Kingdom was destroyed and erased by its enemies, why wouldn't the government already know of its location after they defeated the Great Kingdom? It should have been destroyed and buried away ages ago, at least if that was their main island. Lastly, going off my second point, it is already suggested that the Great Kingdom was already destroyed. When we see panels of the poneglyphs being created, what do we see? Fire, flooding, and catastrophe. If Laughtale was where the Great Kingdom solely resided, it would have already been sunken and reduced to flames. And if the poneglyphs on there couldn't be destroyed, they would have been taken away by the world government after they conquered it. I would deduce that this all means that Laughtale was at least not a major island of the Great Kingdom. So, if Laughtale was merely a hidden island where the Great Kingdom buried away all of their knowledge, where could the original Great Kingdom be? Well, I believe we've already seen it, or rather, what's left of it. From here on out, things may seem a bit outlandish and crazy at first, but just bear with me. Many hints have been left behind about how this great kingdom has been hidden away by the world government. Oda has done a great job of dangling this answer right in front of us. Going back to this panel, the idea that the Great Kingdom was both destroyed and flooded can mean one thing. It was literally buried or completely sunken by the enemy forces. How could this happen? What sort of power would be required to accomplish such a feat? Islands being destroyed isn't all that unheard of in One Piece, but sunken? We haven't seen anything quite on that scale yet. I think how this was done is fairly apparent. The only weapons that could have accomplished this were the ancient weapons, but more on that later. A sunken great kingdom, all thanks to the forces that are today's current world government, would easily explain how almost nobody knows where the Great Kingdom is or what its history is. In case you haven't noticed, this idea parallels the real-world theory of Atlantis, suddenly sinking overnight without any information given about how or where it was. And there is some further foreshadowing of this idea. First and foremost, some major foreshadowing was shown in Mocktown and Skypiea. Bellamy mentions the existence of a place called the Emerald City, which is brought up along with the legends of the One Piece and the City of Gold, which we know to be true, yet are only known to many as rumors. Both places haven't been seen by the general population or even most pirates. However, why hasn't the Emerald City ever been brought up past that? Surely the New World pirates would have brought it up at some point. I believe that is because, much like Shandora, the Emerald City has disappeared from the public eye for many centuries. And since Bellamy mocks its very existence so harshly, it can be believed that almost nobody has seen it except for a special few, much like Shandora and the One Piece. However, unlike Shandora, which was blasted into the sky, the Emerald City may have disappeared due to other means. Where could it have disappeared to? Well, throughout the Mocktown arc, we see lines from Noland that suggest Shandora had sunk beneath the sea. We know this isn't true, but this could be massive foreshadowing for where the other rumored location, the Emerald City, could be. We also know that Cricket and Noland are notorious divers in their search for information on it after believing it to be sunken. Even though they were wrong about Jaya being underwater, they weren't entirely on the wrong path. The knock-up stream does involve water sinking into pockets in the earth, and I believe this concept is vital to understanding where the Great Kingdom is. This all leads into the idea that wherever this Great Kingdom is, it is heavily connected to the real-world myth of Atlantis, a great utopia that magically disappeared, believed to have sunken into the bottom of the ocean. Similar legends, such as the continent of Lemuria, suggest the idea of sinking islands. The name Emerald City is likely derived from the stories of the Land of Oz, also seen in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It is described as a magnificent city covered in emeralds and jewels. The Emerald City in One Piece, however, might be using the name to describe the riches of this place, like how the City of Gold is named after its great supply of gold. It could have been a grand city, similar to the City of Gold, but instead decorated in jewels and other flashy riches. Considering how the City of Gold and the Emerald City are brought up in the same line, they could be connected or brought up in similar stories along with the One Piece. If the ancient kingdoms are all connected in some way to these myths, it would make sense that the Emerald City is also connected to the Void Century and the Great Kingdom. If we tie together all of these potential clues and foreshadowing, such as the idea of sunken ruins established in Mocktown, the existence of an Emerald City, and panels showing the destruction and sinking of the Great Kingdom, I believe it is clear that the Great Kingdom could be massively foreshadowed by all these concepts, and it might only be referred to now as the Emerald City by pirates and explorers. Okay, sure, maybe the Great Kingdom did sink, but where is it, and what definitive proof is there that we know anything about it relating to the Emerald City? You may be asking. And the answer to that question is a bit complicated and requires delving into the world government itself. Right before we do that, though, let us take a journey into the Florian Triangle. The Florian Triangle is based on the Bermuda Triangle, also known as the Devil's Triangle, where many ships and planes disappear each year. This entire region is shrouded in mystery and chaos, considered demonic and cursed, even before Moria and Brook had established themselves there. Now, something to note is that the Florian Triangle encompasses everywhere from Water 7 to Fishman Island. Mysteriously, the world government had decided to place many of their buildings right near this region.
Considering the location of the Florian Triangle hasn't been fully mapped out yet, A lot of this requires guesswork. It was stated that the Florian Triangle is a portion of the ocean stretching from Water 7 to Fishman Island. The word triangle in the name indicates that the regional is drawn to be triangular on the map. If it reaches to Fishman Island, we could draw one point of the triangle connecting to Fishman Island near the red line, and another near Water 7.
Which the Straw Hats left before they entered the Florian Triangle.
Looking at the Tarai Current, which is surrounded by the Gates of Justice near the government buildings, it looks to be a potential portion of the Florian Triangle, seeing as it's completely covered in fog. Like much of the Florian Triangle, perhaps the triangular shape of the Tarai Current is a portion of the larger Florian Triangle itself. This might explain why we see a powerful fog within the Tarai Current, as well as why it creates such deadly currents. These are all signs of phenomenon that occur within the Florian Triangle. This is all important to point out because there isn't much at all known about the Florian Triangle by people in the One Piece world. It would be natural to think that this is the best place to look when talking about hidden locations. And with the existence of the Tarai Current being nearby, this leads to the next major point.
The existence of the Gates of Justice is very abnormal. What is their purpose aside from transportation? Well, I believe there is a much larger secret within these gates that is yet to be uncovered.
It is explained that the gates operate in a very strict way. You first need clearance from the Marines or the world government to open one. The central current allows quick travel between gates, forming a whirlpool of sorts from the currents themselves. Open gates allow currents to stream through said gate and bring ships through them. However, if no gates are open, a ship would be caught in the giant whirlpool forever. However, this begs the question, what happens when all the gates are opened at once? I am no expert on currents myself, but it could be said that the currents could shift outward toward the gates if they do control the currents in that way. And if this whirlpool were to subside, what would be found laying within the gates or under the gates? This could hold the secrets to the Great Kingdom. I will now state what we believe to be the truth behind the Gates of Justice and the Tarai Current. We hypothesize that this is the burial place or potential burial place of the Great Kingdom, trapped beneath the maelstrom of currents brought upon by the world government in the past. When all of the currents stop forcing the water downward, the island trapped beneath the whirlpool will arise, much like the whirlpools formed in a bathtub when you pull the plug. The whirlpool formed may act very similar to the pockets described by Mont Blanc Cricket when explaining knock-up streams.
To go over knock-up streams again, knock-up streams form when pockets open on the Earth's floor and pull in water in a whirlpool. However, once gas pressure in the pocket becomes too large to contain, the water is shot into the sky in a huge geyser. But what would happen if the currents were kept there permanently? I believe that is what is happening to whatever is trapped within the Tarai Current. You might believe that if this whirlpool was formed by such an event, that like Shandora, the kingdom was naturally shot up into the air, into the Sky Islands. I think this is kind of unlikely considering a few factors. For one, and this is more my own opinion rather than evidence, I think that since a sunken city like Atlantis would be much more thematic for the Forgotten Emerald City, the Great Kingdom would not be trapped in the Sky Islands. Plus, the world government would have probably tried to establish Sky Island bases to cover up the kingdom after it was blasted into the air, instead of containing this cage of currents. Second, if the Tarai Current still exists today, I doubt the water has been allowed to shoot into the sky. This is most likely the work of the world government's technology keeping it contained. We know that agents of the revolutionaries are kept in government bases that have access to the gate controls, such as Bon Clay and Ivankov, who were stationed in Impel Down. They may have been left on standby to one day open all three gates simultaneously to release the island trapped in the whirlpool. Additionally, one major theory about Atlantis sinking is that it was swallowed by the Bermuda Triangle. This theory was proposed in the 1970s by writer Charles Berlitz, and parallels the idea of the Florian Triangle swallowing up the Emerald City, or the Great Kingdom. Furthermore, we know that Oda has shown that he has studied the Bermuda Triangle to some extent in an SBS interview, so him taking inspiration from this idea is a fair possibility. With all of that in mind, I am fairly convinced that the Navy has the Great Kingdom trapped beneath their base of operations, within the Gates of Justice, that nobody can ever lay their eyes on it or know of their existence. If one would even try to descend the currents, they would surely be crushed by the pressure of the whirlpool, meaning nobody aside from the world government could access the location, in theory. Now, even with all of this, you might say, this doesn't prove that the ancient kingdom is trapped there, it could be any island, which is a fair point. However, I think the idea has a lot more ground than you might initially think. Let's look at Enies Lobby. What do you see? Much of this place is gated off from the rest of the world, only to be accessed by certain officials. And what do you see within it? Let's look at the map. In contrast to the typical marine buildings, which are often drawn to be white and pointy or cylindrical, these buildings look almost bronze and square. In Marineford, many of the buildings have a very Japan-inspired architecture. However, these look nothing like those. These buildings are never explained, seem mostly unoccupied, and are deteriorating, which is uncanny in comparison to the rest of the marine designs. In fact, this almost reminds me of the design of the buildings in Shandora, the ancient city of gold. I would venture to say that these are ruins that have been repurposed and contained within Enies Lobby. Enies Lobby is also kept away from the public eye, which means not many would ever see the ruins contained within it. And considering Shandora also had a poneglyph, which ties it to the Great Kingdom, it is very probable that the architecture of both kingdoms might have been similar during that time era. But what are these ruins doing in Enies Lobby? I believe that these are the remnants of another island ruled under the ancient kingdom long ago. A place that was almost destroyed, but now holds on by a thread to be controlled and repurposed as a government building held under tight control and walled away from the rest of the world. It would make perfect sense that any section of the Great Kingdom that wasn't destroyed by the world government might be completely covered up and held under government control to this day. Considering how close Enies Lobby is to the Tarai Current, it wouldn't be wrong to say that if an island once existed where the whirlpool is, it would have been a neighboring island of the island that existed where Enies Lobby currently resides. And looking over the strange hole beneath Enies Lobby, it looks as if something once occurred that perhaps almost sunk the island under Enies Lobby to the bottom of the ocean as well. Whatever way the original Great Kingdom capital was sunk, Enies Lobby might have almost met a similar fate. It is now hanging on by a thread, looking to almost fall into an endless void beneath the ocean. Another point to look at altogether is that many allied islands that worked with the Great Kingdom, such as Fishman Island and Water 7, are situated right next to the world government buildings connected to the Gates of Justice. One last major point I want to mention are these large silhouettes towering over the Florian Triangle. We were never given an explanation on what these are. I believe they might be remaining creatures or spirits of the forgotten Great Kingdom, considering they clearly resemble the Japanese umibozu, which are giant sea spirits. They might indeed be the shadows of the Lost Kingdom trapped beneath the Florian Triangle. Some of you may have gotten very lost with all of this info dumping. If we look at a timeline here, I believe things will start to form a comprehensive story. So, to summarize everything we've talked about and combine it into one big picture. At the beginning, far before most of the major events in history, the Kingdom of Alabasta and many others were formed more than 500 years before the start of the Void Century. The Nefertari family, which was among the 20 kingdoms that formed the world government, may have joined the Great Kingdom's alliance as well, as they hold another poneglyph. However, unlike the other potential allies of the Great Kingdom, they might have joined the enemy kingdoms during the Great War or betrayed the Great Kingdom later on. Then, the events leading up to the Void Century began to occur. Much of this time period was covered up to avoid any information leaking on the war the Great Kingdom and its allies led against what is today the current world government. During this century, inhabitants of the moon, such as Shandorians, Birkins, Skypians, potentially minks and variants of humans such as celestial dragons, make their way to the blue planet. Once again, if you check the official One Piece wiki, you'll find all the information on these dates. The Shandorians, after descending from the moon, also established a kingdom around current-day Mocktown around 1100 years ago in the City of Gold, aka Shandora. They would later hide a poneglyph in this location. Zo, which is placed on a 1,000-year-old elephant named Zunisha, was built right after the time the Void Century first took place, meaning the Minks may have arrived from the moon around then and built their kingdom on Zunisha or expanded to other areas. This region likely allied with the Great Kingdom because it contains a poneglyph. The Kozuki clan in Wano Kuni, which was formed around a similar time, allied with the Mink tribe on Zo in the Great Kingdom. They passed the closed door policy, most likely to protect against the enemies of the Great Kingdom, and would also craft the poneglyphs toward the end of the Great War. The Great Kingdom itself likely rose to power around this time as well. Allying with the other forces and kingdoms that would later inherit the poneglyphs, they formed a powerful military in their kingdom that harnessed the power of the ancient weapons and other advanced technology, and a militia powerful enough to scare much of the world. The Pluton was created in Water 7, Poseidon was created within Fishman Island, and Uranus was made somewhere else. Shortly after, the Great War took place, and the Void Century continued until sometime around the end of the war. The Great Kingdom would have fought for the ideals of freedom and prosperity among everyone, as it allied with humans, human variants, and demi-humans of all kinds. Sometime between the founding of the Great Kingdom and the end of the war, Joy Boy, a prominent figure representing the Great Kingdom, made a promise to Fishman Island that he failed to keep, likely because of the defeat of the Great Kingdom. The D family may have been established or existed far before the Great Kingdom's creation. Regardless, the D family must have posed a massive threat to the Celestial Dragons, and by extension, all of the other 20 kingdoms allied with them. This means the D family must have existed as a powerful force or group that was within or allied with the Great Kingdom. Despite posing a massive threat to the 20 kingdoms with their immense advantage in technology and weaponry, enough to completely terrify and eradicate them, the Great Kingdom was somehow defeated and completely wiped off the map. This could have been due to the kingdom sinking into the ocean, much like the legend of Atlantis. The only weapon we know of that could have done this would be Uranus or Pluton, which have the power to cause massive destruction. This leads me to believe there was a traitor within the Great Kingdom, perhaps a false D, like a descendant of Blackbeards, that existed and used the ancient weapons against the Great Kingdom to destroy its prominent islands and sink them. Or somehow the 20 kingdoms got their hands on the weapons and used them against the Great Kingdom. At the end of the war, the 20 kingdoms declared victory and conquered and annexed the Great Kingdom, leaving its ruins, such as the ones in Enies Lobby and in the Tarai Current, contained and caged in their new territory. Unfortunately for the 20 kingdoms, the Great Kingdom produced many poneglyphs that contained fragments of the total truth of their goals, the war, and the means to seek revenge against the 20 kingdoms with the ancient weapons. Scattering these around and hiding them in various islands, they awaited someone who could inherit the will of Joy Boy and locate all the poneglyphs to carry on the will. This might currently exist as the Will of D. Many of the allies of the Great Kingdom were split off and ruled over by the world government or sought to escape them. Joy Boy's promise to Fishman Island was broken, and they were left isolated. In fear of the Great Kingdom's will being reignited, the 20 kingdoms united under the Celestial Dragons and Gorosei to combine their forces and form a powerful central world government, as well as a navy that ruled with an iron fist. They sought to destroy every remnant and breadcrumb that could possibly lead to information on the ancient weapons or Great Kingdom's plan leaking, because otherwise the D family and allies of the Great Kingdom could rise again to take on the world government, which is more or less what we're seeing in One Piece right now. Unable to immediately snuff out every last breadcrumb, such as all the poneglyph locations, Poseidon, and the blueprints of Pluton, the world government searched for them for centuries to come. Goldie Roger would find and decipher many of the poneglyphs in the Grand Line with his ability to hear the voices of all things, perhaps since he is a descendant of Joy Boy. He would eventually find the island he dubbed Laughtale, where he reads the plan of the Great Kingdom that hilariously backfired on them and led to their defeat and conquer. All that is left are the plans to seek revenge on the world government, which Roger couldn't follow through with because of his health. Therefore, he left it unintentionally to Luffy to inherit that will. That is where he made the grand speech at the beginning of the series. Eventually, the world government would find out about Ohara, Frankie's possession of the Pluton's blueprints, and the existence of Nico Robin, who would help others read the poneglyphs. This led them on a relentless rampage to capture, destroy, and contain all these threats. In the current day, we find Luffy and his alliance carrying on the will of these many kingdoms and the will of D itself. Perhaps the revolutionaries or the Straw Hats will uncover this truth. I'm betting on the revolutionaries because they've already kinda caught on to the world government, and they are always seen working behind the scenes. Perhaps they will uncover the truth behind the Great Kingdom. Of course, let me know if I made any mistakes in this timeline. What was the complete purpose of the ancient weapons? What was the ultimate plan of the Great Kingdom? And what is the One Piece in its entirety? So that this video doesn't go on forever, I will cover this in my upcoming videos. Now here are some final words from Theorytheory2.
There is an anomaly in the theory, however, when looking at the new location of Marineford. The old Marineford has now become G1, and new Marineford is now located in the New World to deal with the surge of pirates in the new Great Pirate era and the upcoming Throne War. This change in Marineford's location could potentially mean that Oda's plans or the story's plans have changed since its inception, and that the original triangle idea has now been streamlined for something new. Thanks for the collab, One World, and for those that are interested in checking out my channel, feel free. I don't upload very often, but I plan to perhaps pick up the uploads this year with some interesting ideas or theories that I don't think people are talking about these days.
Thanks again, my friend. Everyone, be sure to check out his channel and check out his old uploads. A lot of them are still pretty relevant to this day. However, that is all for now. Stay tuned to find out about the ancient weapons in the next part of this theory. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.